Hello there, welcome back to another show. Today I'm talking about Blackhat, the Michael Mann film that came out, I think it was 2014, 2015, and it was just a disaster. Like, it made almost nothing. It cost quite a lot of money and came out and just died a quick death in January. I mean, releasing it in January is not a good sign. And the critics didn't like it. And a lot of people thought it was boring. A lot of people just thought it didn't get its world properly. And it was Michael Mann's, like, big bomb, basically. It was a bomb that set back his career years. Because he was in his mid-70s at this point, I think. And I could be wrong there. But he was coming off a couple of films like Miami Vice and Public Enemies, which were well respected, but they didn't do massive business. This was the first one he'd done that also get bad reviews. Because, I mean, Michael Mann was one of those directors that his films were not massive blockbusters, but they always get good reviews and people like to watch them, and they tend to stay around him. You keep getting rewatched a lot. A lot of his films have a great rewatch value. So, I mean, like Heat wasn't a big hit. It was released and did well, but the rewatch value is much higher. The Insider, Ali, Collateral was a big hit, but most of his films have a lot of good rewatch value. I mean, Manhunter's been around for decades now, and that bomb was first released. He's one of those kind of directors who make films to last. And this film came out and just hated. It was just loathed. It was like one of those films like they accused it of miscasting the lead with Chris Hemsworth, and even he said he wasn't very happy with his performance, which is a shame because he's actually quite interested in this film. And he's a lot more interested in this film than he's been in recent films where he's either doing the Thor thing, the comedy Thor thing, which is fun, or he's doing these action movies which are pretty dull and lifeless and there's no character in them. This one is like, there was action, but he's much more of like a passive character for a lot of it. And it's more interesting take is this idea of someone who does have some action skills but who's forced to sit on the sidelines for a lot of the film and watch and comment but not be able to go and punch someone, which is maybe that's his frustration with it, I don't know, but it's a more inactive performance which makes it more interesting. The whole film is just like it's very difficult to get into if you're not into this world, really. It's a bit of a specific world, and a world that actually affects the real world a lot, but we don't. It's hard to explain why, because it's all about hacking. And then hacking in movies tends to be people at keyboard going, oh, I've just hacked this, I've just hacked that. Completely unrealistic, but hacking takes a long time. This film actually shows, like, to do anything you have to plan a hack. You have to have something to do with one function, something to do another function, and doing those things themselves takes time. It takes a lot of effort to do a good hack. And the film plays up in that, and it's just frustrating for people who want to treat hacking like an action movie. You know, because there's not really much hacking in movies. There's fake hacking just to get the plot moving, but it's not really the reality. Basically people find acceptable that Jeff Goldblum can hack an alien computer in Independence Day. That's what they find acceptable, and it's like, no. This one actually is realistic and it gets killed. So it's about this. It's also the film has a lot of characters to start with, and then it whittles them down slowly as plot progresses. And it's about how difficult it is to actually make a case for hacking because people are in different countries. And it takes a long time to actually find information of where it came from and find the perpetrator, and you have to deal with lots of legal laws. Legal laws, that's really stupid to comment, but legalities and the laws within the each country are open to negotiation, open to abuse, and are open to countries not getting on and not negotiating, which what the hackers actually depend on is the fact that people ain't going to behave, so they actually have two hacks at the beginning, one in China and one in America, and obviously you think those two countries are not going to cooperate. But they do. Very grudgingly, but they do. Because they know that it's a problem, because the hackers have done a hack on a nuclear power station in Hong Kong. It almost caused a meltdown. It caused a mini meltdown within the plant, but it could have caused a full meltdown of the whole facility. And they have to try and figure out why that happened. At the same time, there was a hack in the stock exchange that some people made a lot of money out of. Now, Chris Hemsworth plays a guy who created this hack years ago. He's the originator of the hack that they used to shut it down. So he created that hack, but that was years ago, and he's been in jail because he did other things that were illegal, and then he get caught, basically. And he's offered a deal basically to help them find out who the hacker is, because they're using what he created in the first place to do. He created it, but he never actually used it for anything. And then they're using it for dangerous deeds. So they need to find out how to hack in the system, which is another hack they need to track down before even his hack can get used to do something. That's how complicated it is. It's lots of details with stuff that you have to work out. And it's going through the system of dealing with the Chinese and Americans, them not trusting each other. The Americans not trusting Hemsworth because he's a known hacker and he's in jail. He's not allowed to go anywhere near computers. And so they've got a federal agent in him. And there's lots of stuff going on that makes them, every side, be a bit wary of each other. But the film's actually showing you these people who are designed by the film not to get on actually being professional, trying to solve the case, because it is about a possible nuclear meltdown, and it's about the different layers of diplomacy they have to deal with to actually get through layer of what the actual crime was. Because the criminals are pretty smart, so they've got layers and layers of middlemen they have to go through before they actually get to the actual criminal. So it's a very interesting film, and it was hated. Not people could quite get it. And I just think people thought it was like unrealistic and weird. And it was about something, it was a criminal investigation they couldn't work out. And there's lots of comments by the critics. It was like, Chris Hemsworth, muscular guy, he's a computer hacker, why is he not just some dweeb? You know, which was stupid. Because the film explained that. It was like, he was in prison. He had to protect himself. And his idea of surviving in prison, he was always a bigger guy, but his idea in prison was he was going to keep educating his mind, he was going to keep his body good for when he get out. So that's what he did, because he's a guy who's always thinking, he's always moving. You know, because when he becomes a hacker, there's an addictive quality to them, so they've got that in the system. And he's a very working class view of hacking and computers. And that's what the film actually has. It's a very working class film about this technology. Usually it's specialists who we were educated in all these places and we are the smartest people ever. And this is more working class, dealing with hacking and dealing with criminals who know all this stuff but have criminal intent and are planning to play the system for their own good. And they don't care about the ego, they just want the money. So it's a criminal movie. It's a crime movie about hacking. And the criminals are brutal. The criminals hire people with guns to do violence. The criminals will take out their competition quite easily. They will take out people investigating them quite easily to stop the investigation. So it's a much more brutal film. And the actual thing of Hemsworth being very different from what you'd expect from a hacker, I actually always liked, because the idea was he is a working class guy and this is what he's good at. This is the thing. He's the guy who looks at the kind of computer world in a very working class way. That's how it works. He always looks at it as if he's an engineer. That's how this works. That's how that works. how do we make it work for us? And because he's a criminal record from early on from a bar fight, he was never going to get hired in these kind of big, complicated companies anyway. So he entered business for himself, and the only way he entered business for himself was to be illegal. So that's how he kind of managed it. And the film's about him trying to get back into the real world via this investigation and realising the real world's not set up to deal with these issues. There's so many legalities that hackers are taking advantage of. So of course it leads him, as the film progresses, to have to go underground and actually take them out with more brutal methods. And that's what's really interesting with the film. The film is about like what are the problems with the laws, what are the problems with how governments actually apply the laws, what are the stuff they have they will not admit to, you know, and what are the things they do that actually causes more problems than good, even though they're meant to be doing a very public investigation. It's not a flawless film. I'm going to say it right now, it's not flawless. There are issues. The final third gets propelled by a twist that I don't think quite lands, which is basically about the idea that they're not going to... It's because it's not set up properly. Like, the film was very good at setting up the parameters of the investigation, and then at a certain point they had to move the pace forward, and I think they explained something in a way that was too quick and never quite got the gravity of it, which is that Hemsworth has to do something illegal to Americans to get information, otherwise the investigation is dead. And if the investigation is dead, it means that he goes back to jail, because his deal with the government is to depend on them actually getting the guys, you know. And the only way to do it is to hack American government. Now, they don't really set up that the Americans aren't going to help them, and they set up the contention between Americans and Chinese. They don't set it up well enough in this one case that the Chinese would not give them this information, and the Americans won't forward this software to help the investigation. It's done so fast that you never get the trap that the person's in, these characters in, at that point. It just becomes a plot twist too quick, and it doesn't land, so it creates a thing in the last third where I can go along with it. I can understand the situation, but I understand why people would be frustrated because it's not explained properly. But there's a lot of pleasures in this film. This film is really nicely shot. It's really well acted. There's lots of supporting actors you'll recognise. There's lots of Chinese actors. The lead actress recently was in Long Day's Journey to Night, which is an amazing film. You know, and she's great in this film. She's the best part of this film too. And the Chinese are just people. They're not caricatured. They're just people, just like everyone else. They don't ever treat them as if they're some other. They're just people in a different culture dealing with it. They're treated almost as equal as Americans in the film, and both sides are showed as very flawed. And that's what's really interesting about the film, this international flavour, this flavour, this is the future. These weird, different cultures coming together, separating. You get a lot of Hong Kong you don't normally see in movies. You get Hong Kong as a functional place rather than some exotic place. Like in American films, when you go to Hong Kong, it's very exotic. When you actually watch Hong Kong films, it's just very working class and everyday. And that's more what Michael Mann goes for in this film. That's just this infrastructure that's tied now to China, and what does China deal with it like? And this is before all the troubles recently. So it's now almost a historical document. So there's a thing in the film. It's all about the way this thing's going to go, and the way how complicated hacks are, and how the time it takes to do the hacks requires real investment. So it's going to need serious investment to do anything with that stuff, and how difficult it is to track them down, and how much money you need to prepare these things. So it's a much more complicated film about the world of hacking, how hacking is now inevitably tied to government control, because they're the only people who can afford to take the time to do all these programs that are very, very complicated. So it's a film about the way the world's going. It's either going criminal or it's going government. We have government programs to stop hacking or hack other territories that you don't agree with, or it's like criminals try to go between the cracks. So it's very much a Michael Mann film. It's just that he's doing a film about a subculture that no one quite understands properly, and a lot of the big twists are like someone having a cell phone that's been planted somewhere, or someone being clever with the phones, and because you're not used to this world, you expect someone going in a different direction. And every so often there's an action scene that's pretty brutal. But mostly it's about people trying to be clever and outsmart each other. And it's trying to be clever with stuff you don't understand. So for a lot of people it's just boring. But for me it's wonderful, it's a beautiful film. It's got its flaws, but it's still beautiful. It does feel like a film that will age really well. That will, as the new world progresses, we'll look back on it, it's like, that was a much better film than people remember it being. It's that kind of film, you know, because it's doing stuff that people didn't understand. And they were expecting a film that was high-tech and fast, and they were expecting the big sexy version of the film. They expected something that was not... This is a film noir version. It's like everybody's doomed. You're either going to die or you're going to be outlawed by the end of it. It's this idea that this is the Wild West and everything's going to go wrong for you if you actually push anything too far, because there's all these laws around you. So it's a very forward-thinking film. It feels like almost like a prequel to where like New Romance and the William Gibson books kind of went. It's just this idea of this is the basics. It also points out is like how everything's tied to all these things that are still tied by wires and technology and microchips, and there's a lot of details that just simple computer hacking these see movies aren't really ready for. You know, it's much more physical based than people think. So I hope you enjoyed this video about Blackhat. I hope it'll inspire somebody to watch it. It's a very good film, but it is a bit of world that's still developing, and it goes against all the cliches you see in movies about the subject. So hope you enjoy this. I'll be back soon with another video. Right, bye for now.